I want to talk to you about single member LLC and self-employment taxes. So here's an overview I want you to pay attention to. So it's really important to understand that LLCs actually pay self-employment taxes depending upon the configuration that you have, okay? LLC themselves don't pay self-employment taxes. Their members do, okay? So the entity itself doesn't pay self-employment taxes. The members do. That's because for federal tax purposes, an LLC is not a taxable entity unless it opts to be taxed as a C corporation. And it's basically indistinguishable from its members. And so the IRS actually treats the LLC as a disregarded entity, okay? And so the tax burden passes through to the members. So each member reports this income on their personal tax return and pays accordingly. So the tax burden includes both general income taxes and self-employment taxes. So when we talk about single member LLC, you need to understand that self-employment taxes are pretty sort of unique here, because self-employment tax is an umbrella term for two taxes governed by the FICA. So we're talking about the Federal Insurance Contribution Acts. So with FICA, you have Social Security and Medicare. So in a traditional employment setting, these taxes are withheld from a person's paycheck. So the employer pays half of them and the employee pays the other half. But when an individual works for themselves as an active participant in their LLC, they have to pay the taxes on their own. So this is kind of important to really think about. So currently, the Tier 1 rate for Social Security is at 12.4%. So Medicare taxes are currently 2.9%, making it a combined rate of 15.3%. So if you're listening to me right now and you are you're wondering what self-employment taxes really are for your single member LLC, that's 15.3%. And Tier 1 applies to any income up to $147,000. $147,000. So for any income that falls into Tier 2, you won't pay Social Security taxes. You will pay Medicare taxes at a 3.8% rate though, okay? So on the plus side, LLC members can deduct half of their paid self-employment taxes as a business expense. Most can also deduct 20% of their qualified business income from their total taxable income. So this is pretty good. And so when we talk about single member LLC tax rates, basically single member LLCs pay the same self-employment taxes as multi-member LLCs, but as the sole owner, they will be taxed on 100% of the business's taxable gain, and that includes self-employment taxes. By the way, boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Make yourself comfortable. You are going to enjoy today's conversation. Now let's quickly talk about why does an LLC pay self-employment tax. Now, an LLC members actually pay self-employment taxes because they're not employed by the LLC. So if you have a single member LLC, you are paying self-employment tax because you're not employed by the LLC. And since you're not employed, no employment taxes are being withheld from your paycheck. So in a typical employment setting, an employer withholds employment taxes from their employees' paychecks, right? But the employee actually only pays half of the employment taxes. The employer pays the other half. So since the LLC owners, and in your case, the owner of a single member LLC is working for himself or herself, you have to pay both the employer and employee share of the tax, okay? And so when we talk about self-employment taxes, LLCs actually have two primary steps for paying self-employment taxes. So calculating how much they owe and actually paying them. So to calculate your self-employment taxes, the IRS recommends using the worksheet that they have on Form 1040 ES to figure out how much tax you owe. And you can use this form for both income taxes and self-employment taxes. So, and once you actually have determined how much tax is due, you can pay your estimated taxes, and making quarterly estimated tax payments is the best practice in our view to avoid late fees or underpayment penalties or underpayment fees. You can actually make these payments using an IRS approved website or sending in a check or a money order with a payment voucher attached to the form. So this is kind of important. And so when we talk about like single member LLC, remember that you can actually file to you can elect to file taxes as a C corporation. You can elect to file taxes as an S corporation. You can elect to file taxes as a partnership. In other words, you actually just file a Form 1065 in some very rare cases, but we have seen cases where you can actually file Form 1120S even if you're a single member LLC. So you do have the flexibility there. The IRS is really is pretty flexible when it comes to that sort of things. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about single member LLC and self-employment taxes. One thing I need to really clarify here is that income from an LLC is subject to self-employment tax, okay, in many cases. So the IRS says that anyone with a material interest in an LLC owes self-employment taxes. So for you as a single member LLC, you do have a material interest in an LLC, in your LLC for that matter. Material mean a significant interest in your LLC. So you, by default, you will owe self-employment taxes. And there are very limited exceptions to this. In general, if you are running your LLC for any substantial amount of time during the year, you should expect to pay self-employment taxes. And one thing I want to say here also is that basically LLC members cannot completely avoid self-employment taxes on any of their LLC profits. Dodging these taxes will be considered tax fraud, and you do not want to go there. Okay, you do not want to You do not want to entertain any idea about tax fraud. You want to comply with the law. It's better that way, and it's how we all do it. And everybody, all citizens, that's how we do it. And so one thing I want to say here is that electing to have the LLC, your LLC, taxed as an S corporation could substantially reduce the self-employment tax burden for members of your LLC, or if you have a multi-member LLC, or your own LLC if you have a single member LLC. Now that's actually the legal way to actually reduce self-employment tax. But the compensation that you have to really think about is that the IRS wants you to pay yourself reasonably well. Okay. And so it's one of those things where you have to see what really works for you, for your specific situation. And the bottom line is, don't try to really avoid taxes. No, try to pay less taxes legally. That's just a better way. You can save on taxes. You have deductions, for instance. You have all kinds of deductions. You have things you can write off. You have a payroll if you're paying others. You have also if you have a home office, you can write off those things. If you actually have, if you have a business, if you have a vehicle and you have used the vehicle for business use. I mean, you have used the vehicle for business. You basically can deduct business use also. So those are really sorry, let me just drink some water here. All right, thank you. So basically, you have the ability to deduct those expenses for business purposes. Let me give you a few pro tips here. So the thing here is that when you actually have a single member LLC and you're trying to contemplate self-employment taxes, it's important to really understand that you have the ability to actually convert your single member LLC into a partnership. In other words, let's say you have one other partner who really wants to join you in your single member LLC. So in your single member LLC, so you actually become a general partnership. You can be a limited partnership. You can be an LP. You can be an LP. You can be a GP. It really depends upon the configuration that you have. The cool thing is that when you actually switch from a single member LLC to a LP, for instance, you basically don't have to file much more paperwork, but the liability protection can be a little reduced because an LLC is, for all intents and purposes, actually that form of legal structure, that form of business structure offers a more solid legal protection than a general partnership, for instance. Okay, and because a general partnership really doesn't have the paperwork, the formal paperwork you get if you go through the LLC formation process. But those are things you have to discuss with your partners in case you just want to see whether or not the grass is greener on the other person's turf. Okay, but one thing I want to say here is that when we talk about single member LLC and self-employment taxes, everything revolves around how you prepare yourself. Okay, how you actually think about the record keeping, how you think about your compliance, the compliance regimen you have vis-a-vis the states where you are operating. Because I've been talking to you about self-employment taxes, but we've been talking about self-employment taxes at the federal level, but there is an entire state component of that self-employment taxes. In other words, you also need to comply with self-employment taxes at the state level if the state where you're operating in so dictates. Okay, now you may be operating in one state, you may be operating in 2 states, in 3, or even more. So you just have to comply with the state's laws regarding self-employment taxes there as well. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about single member LLC and self-employment taxes. Now, it's important to understand that you might take some steps in trying to really reduce self-employment tax with your LLC. So you can reduce self-employment taxes. For instance, you don't have to worry about you don't have to if you self-employed, you have a lot of advantages, right? But it's important to really understand that the way you set up yourself will really determine whether or not you are successful at reducing your self-employment taxes legally. Of course, I want to insist on that. Everything I'm telling you on this show is legal. It has to be legal, okay? You have to do things by complying with the law. You're not trying to dodge taxes or do anything sort of fishy. So when we talk about self-employment taxes, especially when it comes to a single member LLC, you got to ask yourself, how are others doing stuff in your industry? For example, are you a freelancer or independent contractor? How are other freelancers and or independent contractors handling their single member LLC self-employment taxes? How are they doing it? You know, are you a sole proprietor? How are others doing it? Are you a member of a general partnership? Are you a member of an LLC? So it's all about if you are an entrepreneur, it's all about knowing exactly what's happening in the industry, especially the tools and resources that other single member LLC members are using to make sure that they are compliant with the law. For example, you can use tax software to file your taxes, including self-employment taxes. So when we talk about software, we can talk about H&R Block, we can talk about Tax Act, we can talk about Tax Layer, we can talk about Jackson Hewitt, we can talk about a lot of players, and we can also talk about the payroll services. You have services such as Gusto. You have services such as Wave, for instance. They can take care of your self-employment taxes for you. Okay. Now the cost might be a little high, but you have to really, at least you have the flexibility there. Now, if you don't want to either use a software or you don't want to use a third-party service, you can outsource the whole thing to an accountant. It can be a CPA, it can be an enrolled agent, it can be a tax attorney, depending upon the kind of tax configuration that you are looking for your single member LLC, especially as the configuration relates to self-employment taxes. So the bottom line here is what? You have flexibility. When we talk about LLC owners, right? I've already established that LLC owners pay self-employment tax. They do. It's one of those things where you have to really understand that your LLC is a state construct. It's not a federal construct. So you have to actually pay self-employment tax as long as there is a material. I've used that word before. There is a significant sort of interest in the business you are running from 9 to 5. Okay, I mean, if you actively participate in the business, then you really have to make sure that you comply with the law when it comes to self-employment taxes. One thing I want to say here also is that there are some limits when it comes to thresholds here, and so the thresholds vary by filing status. So married filing jointly, the limit is actually $250,000. I'm talking about the limit on how much self-employment tax you have to pay. And if you are single, the threshold for the threshold vary by filing status. So single, $200,000. One thing I want to say here is that you need to really understand that LLCs that want to be taxed as a corporation must file additional forms with the IRS. So if you're listening to me right now, and for some reason you don't like your single member LLC, or you like it but you do not want to file as a partnership federally, you can actually file as a corporation. What happens here is that you have two things to do. So if you want to elect C corporation, you are filing form 8832. So this is actually will help you get the entity classification election. It's called 8832. And for S corporation, you have to file form 2553. So the forms are different, okay? So the form for S corporation is called 2553, and it's for election by a small business corporation. And one thing is one of those things where you have to really, please make sure that if you have any question, let us know in the comment section. You can, and one of our team members will get back to you. We'll explain things to you. But please, when you ask the question, let us know your location, so your state and city, so we have a clear idea how to how to direct our answers, and also at least we can contextualize our answers to you. And so it's either that, or you can send us an email. Our email is in the channel's about section, or you can just reach out to a local tax preparer to provide more guidance. One thing I want to say here is that when we talk about LLC income, there is some LLC income that is exempt from self-employment tax. Okay. Now the thing is, the self-employment tax does not get levied on passive income that LLC owners earn. So if you're a single member LLC and you are trying to really reduce your self-employment taxes, you want to have more of your income through passive income. So passive sources. Okay. So the IRS recognizes two kinds of passive business activity. So trade or business activities in which you do not materially participate during the year. And the second category of passive business activity is actually rental activities, even if you do not materially participate in them unless you are a real estate professional. So when we talk about material participation, so the IRS considers all of the following activities material participation. So the individual participated in the activity for more than 500 hours during the tax year. The individual's participation was substantially all of the participation in the activity of all the individuals for the tax year. This includes the participation of individuals who did not own any interest in the activity. And the individual participated in the activity for more than 100 hours during the tax year and participated at least as much as other individuals, including those who did not own an interest in the activity for the year. And the individual materially participated in the activity other than meeting this fifth criterion that I just said before, for 5 consecutive or not rather, of the last 10 preceding tax years. So this is, you can see that the IRS is really detailed when it comes to the subject of material participation. Okay, so generally, LLC members are hands-on in running their businesses, so their degree of involvement in activities is almost always considered material participation. So that's for the first part here. What about rental activities? So when we talk about rental activities, this is actually the second type of passive income. So this is actually more common with LLCs, okay? And what we have seen in our research is that people sometimes use the LLC business structure, which basically shields them from personal liability risk for rental properties that they own. And the thing is, it's pretty convenient too, okay? So rental income is not subject to self-employment tax. And but one thing I need to say is that the income does have to be reported on the individual's income tax return. This is really important. You have to, so when you file your taxes, your Form 1040, you have to report the income on Schedule C, okay? And so one thing I need to say also is that the bottom line here is you need to organize yourself. So when we talk about self-employment tax, everything happens on Schedule SE. Schedule SE, that's where everything happens. Very important. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. In today's conversation, I spoke to you about single member LLC and self-employment taxes. So let's do a quick recap here. So I gave you the overview, the pro tips, the steps, and now I'm doing the recap. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.